Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And you can see me okay, right? We don't have the spotlight today because my eye is, my left eye is a weird eye. It's a crazy eye. It's a crazy, I get like light blindness sometimes in that one, but it's had all kinds of shit done to it. I've had infections in it and big scar tissue, and I had a detached retina, so I had to have laser surgery where they steam it and burn it back onto the back of your eyeball. And so sometimes when you look, I'll see on videos that my eye looks all like I had a stroke or something, and I think, that poor thing has been through hell and back. But this morning when the light came on, I was like, nope, I'm not going to even be able to do this with the light on. So I said, Joel, if you have to have the light on, I'm going to have to go. I cannot stay. So welcome to 2023. This is the first time back in 2023. I already love this year. I love 2023 because I decided to ahead of time. So you always have to decide ahead of time how you're going to feel. Never wait to see how you feel, because most of the time you'll feel like shit. Right? Because there's all these voices that are telling you why you should feel bad, why you should be worried, why you should be scared. So you should always decide ahead of time how you're going to feel. This is how I've decided to feel today. So I decided to love 2023 before it ever got here. So I've been just having like, December was great, January's great, happy, happy, joy, joy. So I'm going to talk about a couple of different things today. My overriding theme for this whole year, though, is the keys to self-empowerment. The keys to self-empowerment. And that actually came from a little private class that I taught a couple of months ago. I guess it was must have been in December, in Palm Springs. And this little group of people that come, they choose the topics. So they had chosen the topic, and then they said, well, they thought for January that they wanted the topic to be about empowerment. And once I really started thinking about that, I thought, well, that's really the only thing I've ever been talking about for 30-some years, or even more than that, is empowerment. But what I want to tell you about empowerment is that, to me, almost all empowerment is actually self-empowerment. And a lot of times what we're looking for is something to empower us. Somebody that will empower us, something that will encourage us and lift us up and all of those kinds of things. And it's wonderful that we have those things. Like I said, in many ways, that's kind of the work that I do. But as any of you know who've been coming to see me for any length of time, I always say, I'm just here talking to myself. So I'm just here empowering myself, and I make people pay to listen to me talk to myself. And so the first thing that I want you, those of you who take notes and things, to really look at is, a lot of times the issue is not so much about how am I going to empower myself or what is my self-empowerment, but the big thing I think really is to look and see, how do you disempower yourself? Because without a lot of the disempowering that we do, you would just feel empowered. And that a lot of times the disempowerment, and it's unique to everybody, we're all individuals in the ways that we disempower ourselves. And one of the things I was talking about recently is you can even disempower yourself, and we do. So many people do this just in the clothes you wear. Because if you're really honest with yourself, you know that you have depressed clothes. And you know that you go get them when you've decided to be depressed, right? And you don't know that you've decided to be depressed, but A Course in Miracles says decisions are continuous, but you don't always know when you're making them. And it takes practice to start to recognize when you're making them. And so that's why I say when you decide how you're going to feel, when you get more and more cognizant that you've decided at some level to be in a bad mood, to be angry, to be insulted, to be hurt, that there's a whole cavalcade of things that go along with that. When you've decided, for instance, to be depressed, and I'm not talking about clinically depressed, but just when you're just depressed, you'll pick out certain clothes that go along with that. And there are certain people you will call at those times. You won't call the happy people. You're going to call the people who are going to judge you or agree that you're fucked or whatever it is. That there are ways in which we have to say that we are active participants in our empowerment and in our disempowerment. You know, Terry Cole Whitaker, I remember her saying in the 80s, if you keep letting go of what doesn't work, the only thing that's left is what does. So if we just keep letting go of the things that are disempowering us, the only thing that's going to be left is what empowers us, right? So yes, it's great, it's wonderful that we have all of these tools for empowerment, the books, the seminars, the videos and all of these things. But I also know from experience that a lot of times when people need those things the most is when they don't want to hear any of this spiritual bullshit. And that is the decision to stay miserable. I don't want to hear any of this. So a lot of times that when people, there was a movie called A Touch of Pink. And it was a takeoff on a movie called The Touch of Mink, which was a Doris Day, Cary Grant movie from back in the 60s. Well, this Touch of Pink was a gay movie, and it was about this Indian guy who is gay, and his boyfriend is this white guy they're living in New York, and his Indian mother in India doesn't know he's gay and is trying to get him married off. So it's a comedy in which this Indian guy is in the movie industry, and his spirit guide is Cary Grant. And so he appears in the movie as the spirit guide, and it's I can never remember the name of the guy who plays him, but it's this very famous actor who was in Twin Peaks and Sex and the City, and tall, dark-haired guy, and he plays Cary Grant, and so he's the spirit guide to this guy. But the scene in the movie that I never forgot, and the whole movie is very funny, you should see it. It's called A Touch of Pink. You can, stream it somewhere. And so, at a certain point, this Indian mother comes to America where her sister also lives, and her sister is all glamorous and fabulous and happy, and she's married and has this son who's getting married, who's the cousin of this gay guy. But the mother of the gay guy has not been with a man for 15 years or something like that. So she has been, I don't know if she was divorced or whatever, but she just sort of shut that part of her life down, and she hasn't been with anyone. And there's a guy in the building that's always flirting with her, and she just wants him to go away. And she's basically low-grade depressed. And so these two sisters go out shopping to some fabulous store where the fabulous sister wants to buy all this stuff. And finally, she says to her sister, because her sister's there in sweatpants and shopping, and she says, you know what sweatpants say to the world? They say you've given up. And so there was an actual incident in my life that reminded me of that, where I was roommates with this woman in Santa Barbara. And she was a religious science practitioner, she was a rebirther, she had done all this stuff, she made a great living doing all of these things, and then she gradually slid into a depression. And it took a while for us to sort of notice what was going on with her, and she had this dress, I won't call it a house dress because people don't wear house dresses anymore, but it reminded me of that because it was, it buttoned all the way up, but it was very pretty and diaphanous sort of, but she wore it every day. You went, Jay's wearing that dress, that's right. And so her sort of mother-in-law who lived across the street, she wasn't actually married to this guy, but she would have been like the mother-in-law. They didn't really get along. Her name was Eloise. Eloise came over one day. This is the best put down I think I ever heard in my life. Because it's just so, So she finally Eloise said to her, all of us had kind of been subconsciously noticing this dress. But Eloise said, boy, you sure are enjoying that dress. My friend Jeannie and I were like, oh, God. So that was her depressed outfit. She was just wearing the same thing every day, and she had a closet full of clothes, but she was wearing the same thing every day, every day, every day, every day. And so you start to notice patterns that people have which show that to some degree they've given up, right? They've stopped caring, they've stopped about whatever, whether it's about work or their relationship or their health or whatever it is. But that is something that doesn't usually happen overnight. It's done little decision by decision by decision by decision. And finally, after this whole thing went far enough, I realized that she was depressed and that she was making weird decisions and doing weird things. And, you know, we had gone through all of Terry Cole Whitaker classes together and all this stuff, and I said, why don't we just sit down and we'll do what we know to do? Because she was just drifting in her life. I said, well, sit down and write, like, what direction do you want to take? What do you want your life to look like? To set some intentions. And she said, and this is what I really knew she was depressed. She said, Jacob, I know that works, I just don't want to do it. Now that's a decision to disempower yourself, right? And so, and what she really wanted, I believe, at that time was some man to come and save her, because that had been what had always worked in the past. So she just was kind of searching for some man to come save her. So of course some man did come in. And of course he was an absolute fucking nightmare. Because if you're depressed, what are you going to attract? Right? If like attracts like, and you're miserable with your life, are you going to attract some, right? Just imagine some amazing, hot, handsome, successful, loving, giving guy saying, I'd like to meet an older, depressed woman. Right? That's, right? When you're in that state, if you're in a state of that kind of, I want something to come and save me, that's victim consciousness. And victim consciousness attracts predators. Understand? So we start in this idea of self-empowerment by just being more cognizant of where are the ways I disempower myself. You know, just little things, just having that second drink when you know that's not good for you. Not going to the gym when you know the gym makes you feel good. Not things you should do, but the things that you know are the triggers for you, where you've dropped away the things that empower you, and you're making choices that disempower you, that make you feel less connected, less alive, less loving of yourself. So that right there, if you just start to look at that and say, just judge your day, sort of, in a way. Just evaluate it and see, what are the choices I'm making, and are they choices that are lifting me up or bringing me down? And then you start to look at, and how am I also empowering myself? Because, as I said, you know, I write all these books, I give these classes, Patty does Sunday services and classes, we have videos and seminars and CDs and books and all of these things, but you're the one that has to pick them up. Right? You're the one that has to watch them, you're the one that has to read them, you're the one that has to do the work. Like nobody's coming. Just get that. No one is coming, even Jesus ain't coming back. Would you come back after what the fuck happened? No. He's like, come to me. I'm not coming back. Nobody is coming to save us. Save yourself. That every day it's about, I'm the one. Let's say that. I'm the one. Isn't that wonderful? I know some of you don't like that. You want someone else to be the one, but you're going to be the one. Nobody's in charge of our happiness but us. I got that years ago, but it still took me another long stretch of time to realize, even God is not going to make me happy. Even God is not going to make you happy, because that's why we have self-will. We can make ourselves crazy, we can make ourselves stressed, we can make ourselves miserable. The universe doesn't do anything about it. There's no God who does anything about it. We have to make ourselves happy. So that means looking and seeing in that very selfish way, what can I do today to make myself feel good. You know, the romances, and I'm a very romantic person, and I love romance, but so much of it is horseshit that just makes you suffer, like so many of the songs. Make someone happy, make just one someone happy, then you will be happy too. No, you won't. You'll be resentful. Because if my job is to make you happy so that you can make me happy, then every morning when we wake up, I have to look at you and go, is he happy? Are we going to be happy today? How much is it going to take for me to make him happy so then he makes me happy? It's a miserable formula, right? Real relationship is when two whole people come together to share. Now, what A Course in Miracles says is the ego's idea of a relationship is where two crippled, broken, insufficient people come together to rob each other, right? And that's a lot of relationships in the world. So what is radically different, I think, about A Course in Miracles than some other spiritual teachings is that so much of it is about relationships. All kinds of relationships, all forms of relationships, and it really makes no distinction between one form of relationship and another form of relationship, because it says actually they're just really all the same. It's only the way that they're acted out behaviorally that's different, but all relationships are really the same. And so in the paradigms that we're used to, what we would say is happening here is that I came here in order to teach, to speak, to maybe people who've never heard this before, but for the most part, people who've heard all of this before, and we just like to be sort of bolstered in it, maybe hearing it again for a different way, whatever. And that, I'm basically here to try to empower you. But what A Course in Miracles teaches is actually that we are brought here together, and that's why that's always sort of said at the prayer at the beginning, we were drawn here together by the power and in the presence of God, is I don't have any fucking idea why you're here. That's really none of my business. What I know, whether it's a situation like this or any other, the excitement about this is, so whether it's that, a couple dozen people are coming to hear me speak in this particular format, or when I was counseling people and one person was coming for counseling, and the idea, the worldly idea is I've studied this for a long time, I have a certain amount of expertise and wisdom to pass along and tools that you can use and so on and so forth. But what A Course in Miracles says is, no, Jacob, you don't know shit. What happens is we're all called together so that we can be healed together. But this is true then of everything. So that means that's true in your marriage. It's true in your relationship with your children and your parents. It's true in your business where you think you're selling widgets. It's true in every single thing that everybody is basically sent by central casting in this big sort of movie or play that's going on where everybody has the opportunity to be healed together. So then the excitement for me would be that I would be like, oh, this is so great because I'm going to go to San Diego to be healed. The mistake that we get into in the human realm is thinking, oh, well, this is good because I'm going to go there and it's great and I like the people and then I'm going to make money because I need money to live and that's how we survive in this world. It's going to help me pay my bills and it's going to move forward this thing that people call a career or a ministry or a job or a calling or whatever the fuck that is. But that's just the same old idea of how am I going to rob you of something you have? Right? That the ego's idea of business in the world is how do I get the money from their wallet into mine? and then I call that success. Right? And if I'm a person with integrity and so on and so forth, then I'm also thinking in terms of I want them to get a lot out of it, and I want them to have a good time, and I want them to feel this, and I want them to feel that. But then that's none of my business either. Because then that's just another way of me thinking, how can I control them and manipulate them in such a way to make them feel the way I want them to feel? That's why at the beginning I say, how do you want to feel? Not how do I want you to feel? It's how do you want to feel when you leave here? Because we've all been called together to be healed. So can you see how you can apply this to every area of your life, and suddenly it alleviates all the fear and scarcity thinking? Because you don't know why you're there. You just feel like you were sent there somehow. There's something, like, to me, this is just a magical gathering. I don't know what the fuck's going on. I don't know. I don't have any idea why you would come to hear me speak. Right? Everything that I'm going to say, you could read in a pamphlet. New Thought is not that hard. It's like 6 pages of information. That's it. Then just repeat every day. Right? But there's something that draws us together so that our minds can be healed. Not so that we can get more of what we want. Haven't you gotten a lot of what you want? The world today, I don't know if you've noticed this, I don't want to upset anyone, is a shit show. I don't know if you've looked out there at all. Okay. Seen anything that's happening. Okay. But think about this. Things have never been better. Things have never been easier. Things have never been more convenient. It's really the best of times in so many ways. People have more than they've ever had, but people are more miserable than they were during the actual Depression. So you must have thought at some point, maybe getting what you want is not everything it's cracked up to be. Perhaps just the ease of having more is not really the key to happiness, and the key to joy, and the key to satisfaction. Because, this is just, every other commercial on television is about mental illness and depression and anxiety. Right? When you think about how easy our lives are, I think about, like my mother. My mother was 2 generations older than me, so my brothers could have been my parents. So I graduated from high school with my nephew. We were in the same class because my mother had 3 sons, and then 16 years later, she had me. So there was a big difference. So she could have been like my grandmother. So there were things that people my age as parents didn't have this, but we had this at our house because my mother, you didn't used to get new stuff either. People didn't used to get new stuff. Your grandmother had the same mixer her whole fucking life. Like you never, unless it broke, like people didn't get new stuff. You got stuff when you got married and you had it till the fucking day they put you in the ground, right? And maybe you had 5 outfits, maybe, right? You had a good dress, you had a house dress, you had this, right? So my mother had the laundry in the basement, so she had, a washboard and a wringer. People talk about washboard abs, but people don't know what a washboard is. They don't know why that's called that. You have to show them a washboard and say, you used to have to put your clothes on, okay? And she put the clothes through the wringer. People don't know what it means to go through the wringer, but if you've seen the wringer, it's like that. It's like squeezing all the water out of the clothes. So everything took a lot of energy, a lot of work, and a lot of fucking time. And people were not that depressed. They were busy doing things that you didn't just make a meal in a little bit of time, right? So all of these things took a lot of time and a lot of energy. When we went to my grandma's house, we went to the outhouse, and there was a pump for water. There was all this stuff that made life hard. Life's never been so easy. Homeless people have cell phones. Some of them laptops. Right? And yet people are more anxious, more depressed, more upset. The I have this, I've been posting this on some of my private things. That song, there's a couple different versions of it that came out in the 60s, What the World Needs Now is Love, Sweet Love. And obviously, that's really what we're here for. What we're here for is the experience of love. Louise Hay used to say at the Wednesday night hayride, which is sort of the beginning of the AIDS crisis, and every Wednesday night she would have this big meeting in West Hollywood at the auditorium in the park. And there'd be, hundreds of people there sometimes, and there was no drugs for AIDS at that time, so it was really like that was the only thing that was going, was Louise Hay. And she would say at the very beginning, we aren't here to play Ain't It Awful, we're here to take a positive approach. She didn't say we're here to do positive thinking, because you can't tell someone who's dying and, is just fading away in front of you, well, look at the bright side. Like, it's not about having a positive thought. It's taking a positive approach. That's different than having a positive thought. But what she did in those meetings, and there were meditations, and there were all these wonderful things that transpired and took place, and it was really a healing space. But the thing that she said, there were so many things that she said that stuck with me, but one of the big things that she said was, what we're really doing is creating a space where it's safe to love each other. We're creating a space where it's safe to love each other. And that was in that Wednesday night hayride, but she was basically then taking that out to, that's really what we do in the world. When we take a positive approach in the world, we're helping to create a world where it's safe to love each other. But that really means your world. It doesn't mean the planet, right? Because the planet is a place of free will and choice. So people are always going to have the freedom to choose to be afraid, to be angry, to hate, to all of those things. But each of us creates our own world. You can be sitting next to someone who sees a completely different world than you do. There are people who grow up in the same house who tell two completely different stories of their childhood, with the exact same parents, exact same house, exact same school, exact same everything. So each one of us is creating our own world. So again, the decision is what matters. Decisions are continuous. Raymond Charles Barker, who was a great religious science minister, wrote a book on the power of decision, how everything starts with a decision. And too many times, spiritual people in spiritual groups are just fucking wishy-washy pussies. Okay? You gotta make decisions. I've decided to be happy. I've decided to feel good. I've decided to heal. I've decided to prosper. There is no hoping or wishing in New Thought. Anytime you say, I hope, you've left our whole philosophy behind. There should be, on every New Thought church in the world, there should be a sign that says, abandon hope, all ye who enter here. Because this is a law-based universe. So these are spiritual principles and laws that work the same for everybody all the time. So that would be, so it's just like any other natural law. So you don't get up in the morning and say, really hope gravity keeps me on the planet today. I'm really wishing and hoping, got my fingers crossed. We'll see what happens. Right? You know that it's there, it's going to work. So there's just deciding and then lining up with the decision. See, a lot of times what I also see people do is make a decision and then make the decision wrong. I decided it, then you just second guess it all the time. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. I never should have taken that job. I shouldn't have moved to that place. I never should have gotten that blah, blah, blah. I shouldn't have done this. Once you make a decision, if you can't change your mind about it, if it's already done, finished, then at least make it right. Right? Well, this is what I learned from that decision. Right? You know, there was I can't remember what it was, what's it called? I think it was just called the Kathy and Mo Show. So it was a stage show, and so my friend, my friend Jenny Sullivan directed that at one point, but I remember seeing the original show, and there's a whole, and a lot of it are monologues between the two of them, or dialogues between the two, but then there'll be monologues. So there's one where she does a whole monologue at an abortion clinic, and she's protesting the abortion clinic. And she's screaming at the people, and she's, ah. But then she's talking to herself about, and the reason she's at them is because she's had abortions. And then she keeps going through, and she's so back and forth through the whole thing, because she's like, but if I wouldn't have had that abortion, then I wouldn't have met so-and-so, and I wouldn't have done that thing, and I wouldn't have been in that place, and I wouldn't have done that. So even though it was something that now she was judging, it still led to all of how her life was so good now. So we have a choice in every situation of whether they're going to make the best of things or make the worst of things. And so sometimes people avoid making decisions because they don't want to look stupid if it doesn't work out. Or they don't want to fail. What if I make the wrong decision? What if I whatever? And so what ends up happening is you're just going to bring into your life whatever is a match for probably whatever is your lowest energy point. So just like my friend said, she didn't want to sit down and decide what she wanted to experience in life. Let's write out. If you're saying, like, it's okay that what you really want is a man in your life, but let's write him out on paper, okay? Let's look at who this person is, and then you be a match to that, right? Make a decision. Instead, someone just came in who was a match to where she was. So she attracted a predator into her life, and it was a fucking nightmare for years that went on. And many of us just weren't even friends with her anymore because we couldn't be around them, right? All because I don't want to make a decision. So one of the things that A Course in Miracles says that I like is it says, well, let's say you are in that just helpless, like down licking the carpet place. And it's really hard. You can't really make like a positive decision. It says, well, just start where you are and you can say, at least I can decide I don't like how I feel. I can at least start there, because that's where the contrast starts as we start. Well, I can say I don't want this. Because a lot of times, like I said, if you're picking out your depressed clothes, you do want this. You're deciding for it. You're deciding not to show up at your best. Something happens when, Terry used to say, this has gotten a bad rap, I think, over the years, to a certain degree, but Terry certainly this used to be a big thing in Terry's ministry, which was fake it till you make it. Sometimes just faking it will start to get you there. Just kind of pretending. Just kind of pretend. Just put on your most fabulous outfit, fix yourself up, take yourself out to a nice place, and just smile like a fucking idiot. Right? Just pretend for a little while, and what can happen is you can start to move in that direction, and then sometimes what you see is, I'm uncomfortable being this happy. Right? I'm uncomfortable feeling this good. Well, that's okay. You are where you are. Just keep reaching for a better decision. There's a great line also in A Course in Miracles that says, trials are lessons that are repeated so that where you made a faulty choice, you can now make a better one. So I don't know if any of you in here have had something happen where you go, I can't believe this is happening again. That's a trial. That's like, it's being repeated so that where you made a faulty choice, you can make a better one. Now, the Course is very specific in the words it chooses. So it doesn't say where you made the wrong choice, you can make the perfect choice, right? It says, okay, that was not the best choice in that situation. Like when you decided to hook up with that heroin dealer. That was probably not the clearest choice, right? Okay, so now it's being repeated. This is not a heroin dealer, but it's somebody who has issues with drugs, right? Because it's usually, like maybe you've learned enough, so it comes back around. Now you can make a better choice. It's not a perfect choice. This is not sin and goodness. It's not right and wrong. It's we just keep making better and better and better choices. I have given up all ideas of progress. To me, progress is just another stressful concept. You know how you hear, progress, not perfection. I'm like, fuck that. I just go, peace, not perfection. What I'm looking for is peace, not even progress, like there's somewhere to get to. Progress is always like, where the fuck are we getting to? Progress in what? Progress where? Like it's always, you're going. Where the fuck are we going? Can't we just be here? Can't we just be like peaceful with this? Because whatever is the dominant consciousness within us now will just bring the next thing and the next thing and the next thing that matches that. So if you're feeling good now, then you're going to feel good in the next thing too, because it's coming from that same energy stream, right? Does that make sense? Okay, so this, to me, when we gather together like this, is just this magical gathering where I don't know what anyone needs to hear. I don't know what anyone's going to take away from this. You know, when I first started lecturing, there were lots and lots of people coming in Santa Barbara. And a lot of the people, like, they were not, it's nice like this where we're in a place where most of the people know this stuff and have studied this stuff, and because it's a New Thought church, a lot of people here from the church and everything. But I was just gathering the flotsam and jetsam of Santa Barbara. And so they were just all different sort of whatever. And it took me years to realize a lot of these people have no fucking idea what I'm talking about at all. They don't have any clue what the fuck I'm talking about. Like I say all these things about the principles and I realize most of these people don't even know what a principle is. But they just like being here. They just like being, they like the meditation, and they like that I'm kind of funny, and they like whatever. And then they just go back and do all the fucking stupid shit they were doing when they walked in the door. A lot of the times I would hear about people getting in fights in the fucking parking lot after we had talked an hour about forgiveness. It's like, what the fuck is going on? And people would actually come to me and they would say things like, oh my God, it was so great when you said blah, 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 blah. And I would say at the time, but then at a certain point I stopped saying it. I would go, I didn't say that. I've never heard that. I don't know what the fuck that means. And I realized that when you are in that space of, we're all just here to be healed together, and that's our intention, and we set it together at the beginning like we do, people will hear what they need to hear, even if I don't fucking say it. They'll just hear it, and then they'll think I said it. So I just go, I'm brilliant. You know, I guess, I don't know. Just take credit for it. Just go, okay, yeah, I guess I'm brilliant. Right? But that is what makes life so different, even if you're still doing exactly the same things. One of the lessons in the course is, now let a new perception come to me. So some of you might have been in your marriage for decades. You might have been in your career for decades. You might have lived in the same place you live in for 30 years, so that you really don't see it anymore, really. Right? It's just there. It's just same old, same. That's why even I move my affirmations around and make new ones around all the time, because after an affirmation is up for a certain amount of time, you don't see it anymore. You don't notice it. You don't read it. It just blends. It's just there. You're not paying any more attention to it anymore. Just because of the way our mind operates. It helps perhaps with your subconscious, but you're not really seeing it anymore. So, when you decide, I'm going to see my life differently, instead of continually trying to change the circumstances. See, this is why, and I kind of like that I didn't do this early in January, because, you know, it's like this whole thing where every January it's like, a new year, a new me. Well, right there, the assumption is there's something wrong with the present you, and it needs to be fixed. We're not talking about self-improvement. When I say the keys to self-empowerment, that has nothing to do with self-improvement, like you're broken and need fixing. It's empowering the self that you are, right? So if in a situation you look at that career that you've been doing over and over and over again, and you're caught in the minutia of it, right? There's the budget, whether the numbers are up or down, how many customers are doing this, what the shipping is, what the blah, blah, all of this. What could be more fucking boring and endless than years of that? But if what you realize is, oh no, I work for God. And everybody works for God. We all work for God. It's like a secret fucking society where we all work for God. And the business is just a cover. Right? It's like a money laundering thing, right? Right? This is just the thing I do, is you just sell the widgets, you know? But that's not really what's going on. What's really going on are the sons and daughters of God are coming together to create an experience where it's safe to love each other and be healed. And it looks like it's an exchange of money or services or goods or blah, 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 blah. But that's just the cover. That's just what it looks like outside. That's just the fake front of the building, right? I don't recommend this because it kind of ruins it in a way. But I watched, it's a problematic movie anyhow, but I had seen this thing about Gone with the Wind where they showed, and this was even years before they have the kind of like CGI, that kind of stuff, but it showed how much of it wasn't there. Like when they walked into this big Tara thing, and it's like all this stuff that wasn't there, it was like just a fucking door, and the rest of it wasn't there, and I was like, well, that kind of sucks. But it's like that. It's like that's the business we all run. It's like it looks like this, like, oh, you have this website, and it says all this stuff, and you have this little storefront, or you have your little cubicle at work, and you have your computer. It's like, isn't that cute? Because really what's going on is a massive cosmic fucking thing, right? This massive cosmic fucking thing where we all come together to learn lessons in love. And what the Course says, it's not up to you what you learn, only whether you learn through joy or through pain. So it's always shifting the paradigm of how you see things. Somebody was saying in one of my classes the other week she was saying, oh yes, it's another fucking lesson. And I'm like, what? Excuse me? That is exactly the paradigm you want to get rid of, is that lessons are these horrible fucking things that make you feel like shit. I actually had a religious science minister, God help us. Anyhow, she was, something else. And she used to say all the time, growth is just the word ow with 2 letters on each side. Okay, fuck you. This is, people can sneak into new thought and not know what the fuck they're doing. But that was her idea, was growth is this painful, horrible thing that you have to go through, the white knuckle approach to life, she would call it, and all of it is stressful, and all of it is hard, and all of it is this. But we're here to learn joyful lessons. To learn joy. It's up to us whether we learn through joy or through pain. And the pain comes from resistance. It comes from resisting the lesson, resisting the forgiveness, resisting one of the things that Joel Goldsmith, the great mystic Joel Goldsmith, talked about all the time was, because he would talk a lot about Christianity and said, there's no way you're a Christian if you are not every single day praying for your enemies. Because that is exactly what Jesus said to do. Pray for your enemies. And so he was, would talk all through World War II about how he would come and talk about praying for our, men and women. And he said, but you have to pray for the other side too. We are instructed to pray for your enemies. Those who use you and despise you, pray for your enemies. That's a huge shift in perception. It doesn't pray, you're not praying that they'll get their way or get what they want in life, but you're also not praying in a way that the people will get what they want in life. The prayer is really an alignment of consciousness, which is just whatever's the best outcome. Whatever's the best outcome. Another thing that Terry said that was great, I loved, I don't know, she was like on husband number 4 by this time. And she talked about how she said it was almost like a curse, because she said, you know that person you want? I hope you get him. Plenty of people prayed to get me, got me, and wished they hadn't. So it's that thing where, it's like we're always taught in New Thought that little wonderful phrase of this or something better for the highest good. That you're not outlining exactly the person, the this, the that, that it's much more, like this kind of person, this kind of a job, this kind of an organization, this kind of a whatever. And I often think of the people who, you never know how it's going to get worked out. So that to just not judge what's happening in the moment is such freedom. Because you think about all those stories you hear, like at 9/11 or any sort of horrific experience like that, where you hear the stories of people who were going to be there but weren't because of something that they judged as awful. Oh no, I got so sick and so I couldn't, or my son got in this horrible accident and blah, 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 and we had to go, and so they missed the flight that crashed, or they missed the shooting in the nightclub, or whatever it was, by not getting their way, by not ending up at the place that they thought they should be. So our prayers and our treatments, for the most part, are really most helpful when they're much more general in terms of specific people or specific places or specific, you know what I mean? Like sometimes that business that you are treating to keep open is the thing that's killing you. Right? And you don't realize, my friend Zan, this was back in the 80s. And she was doing a little bit of part-time work for this accountant. We were all in the same ministry at the time. And this accountant was in the ministry, or this therapist was in the ministry, and my friend Zan it was like a trade. So for her doing therapy with him, she was doing his books. And he wasn't even a good therapist. In fact, he would fall asleep during her sessions sometimes. So he was not a good therapist or anything. But Zan is she's just such a wonderful, kind, open-hearted person, and I've trained her out of some of that. You are way too fucking nice for your own good. So, they live very far apart in Los Angeles. Everything is timed in Los Angeles. It's not miles, it's how long. So, I don't know, he was 45 minutes away or something like that. And he called her really angry. And it was 8 o'clock at night or something. And she had worked at her regular job all day. And then he was saying, oh, you made this mistake and I'm so mad on the accounting and and you better fix it. And so she got out of, her night clothes, and she was racing in her little Karmann Ghia over his house, and she was having this inner conversation with herself of, oh, he's so mad and I hope he doesn't get upset and I really want this relationship. And she said, and then I thought, how's come? How's come I want this relationship? He's a horrible therapist. He doesn't know what he's doing. I have to drive all the way out to see him. I'm doing all the work on this. How's come I so want to be like his friend? And it was one of what I call those moments where you just suddenly go sane. You just go, whew, and you're like, what the fuck have I been doing? This thing that I wanted so bad, this thing I've been working for so bad, this thing that I put so much energy and effort in, is the thing that's been fucking destroying my happiness. But that's what happens when we're looking at the thing instead of the content. Right? The content, which is, oh, that's right, we're all sent here on this secret assignment where by being brought together, we're healed. Right? Now, we can choose not to be healed, but it also doesn't matter. You don't have to agree. What the great thing in A Course in Miracles is it says, whoever is saner at the moment. So it says you can be where you go into that place of, oh, I realize what this really is. Like, I realize the big picture of this. This is not about this thing that we think it's about. And what I realize is this is an opportunity for me to let go of this resentment, to let go of this pain. And that person can still stay mad, though. Right? It doesn't take both of you. You're brought together in order to have the experience, but it's not something that you have to agree on. It doesn't mean that when you're healed together, it doesn't mean both people get it yet. Right? You just have to be willing to get it. And so whatever that is, it doesn't mean, and then we'll hug. Right? It may mean, and then I will divorce this person because this is bullshit. Right? Not bullshit because of that person, but this is bullshit because I keep showing up where I'm not loved, I'm not respected, I don't feel good, I don't want to be here, whatever it is, right? That can be the healing. And you can just be like, I remember Marianne saying in one of her lectures, you can say, thank you, you're wonderful, I love you, never call me. That's it. We're done. Right? It doesn't have to be this thing of, and then Hitler and I hugged. It's not like, right? You don't lose brain cells when you do this. You get like, this is bad news, okay? We're not gonna, All right? So, can I just present the idea also that a lot of this anxiety, because this is one of the buzzwords. Here's the big, for X number of years now, it's been anxiety. Anxiety's been the buzzword. And it never really bothered because I was anxious before it was hip. So way back, when I was a tiny child, I had anxiety attacks, and they didn't even call it that. And it was passed down from my mother. They didn't call it anxiety. My dad would say, your mother's having one of her fits. And that was a panic attack because they didn't call them panic attacks in the 1960s. So my dad would say, your mother's having one of her fits. Because she couldn't breathe. She would have a panic attack and she couldn't breathe. And he didn't do that. He had bleeding ulcers, okay, from worrying. And so then they were constantly looking at me and going, what is wrong with him? Right? Taking me all over the place to fix me because why is he so anxious? Why is he so upset? It's like, I learned at the feet of masters. I mean, our DNA's fucked. Look at the two of you. Wondering, why is he so anxious? Why is he so upset? She's over here gasping for breath. He's bleeding. It's like, why is he not okay? What is wrong with him? I don't understand. Someone fix him. So, and that's really what brought me into New Thought was my anxiety, because at a certain point, because I'm both a hypochondriac and a metaphysician, which is very hard to do. Okay. So I was being taken to doctors all the time. And my childhood is so fucking bizarre, like a movie. It should have been made into a movie. So this was in the 1960s. We lived in rural Pennsylvania in the middle of, we might as well have been living in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. So it was very poor, redneck people, like farms and factories and uneducated. My father, I don't think, made it past first or second grade. My mother didn't make it past 8th grade. I just realized the other day when I was going to buy some popcorn, and I'm like, I love popcorn, but I never get popcorn. Why do I never get popcorn? Because I always get potato chips when really I should be getting popcorn. Why? Because we never had popcorn. And I realized the reason that we never had popcorn when I was growing up is because both my parents had full sets of dentures. So we didn't have popcorn because that was very hard on them. So they were very, in that way, old when I was born, and it was a very unsophisticated, hick place. And yet, my parents, who didn't go to school, didn't read books, it's not like, but they were self-educated. They were. My father was very good at math and geometry and things like that, and he was more or less, he was really like an architect in a way, because he was a contractor and he would build houses, but he designed the whole houses and the cabinets and everything. So he was good at that. But they never read books. They never read anything, really. But they had some weird, how we all come in. We've all had many different lives. So my father started taking us to a chiropractor. Now, in the 1960s in rural Pennsylvania, to go to a chiropractor, first of all, you had to drive 45 minutes to get to a chiropractor. Second of all, you might as well just said, we're going to a witch doctor. Right? We were the only people in town that went to a chiropractor. And my dad took all kinds of vitamins and stuff when people didn't really take vitamins and stuff like that. So he was doing all these things. And my mother would read horoscopes. She got a horoscope magazine that came every month, and that was witchy weird stuff too. And we were Catholic. It was all just very like how they were interested in things that nobody else around us was interested in, and that was very hard to get your fucking hands on. So we were going to these doctors where I was having all these, weird things that, would turn out to be whatever. And this woman doctor, so I had an Indian woman doctor. I want you to know how fucking crazy that is. In like 1968, rural Pennsylvania, like Indian with a red dot on her forehead. First of all, there weren't women doctors around. Again, this was someplace we had to drive 45 minutes or whatever to get to. And I remember we're standing in one of those little rooms in doctor's office. Not an exam room, but like a hallway room where they have the pills and stuff like that. Because she was like, something's fucking weird. So she's standing there, my mother and father right there, and I'm standing right there, and she said, right in front of me, thank God, she said, is he worried about something? And they said, why? And he said, because this is all in his head. Well, first of all, I was humiliated, because I didn't know that it was all in my head. Humiliated that I was doing this to myself, but I was also set free. Because it embarrassed me, I was like, well, I'm not going to do this anymore. Whatever the fuck this is that I've been doing, I don't want to be embarrassed like this anymore. So my mother gave me a book. Now, where's the fuck she got this? I have a copy of it now. I rebought it a couple years ago, hardback. That is a self-hypnosis book. So when you open the cover, it has that wheel. You know, the wheel that used to spin where they'd hypnotize you? The wheel, look at, that's how old-timey this was. And it would have how to do a self-induction, to induce yourself into the state of hypnosis, and then what to say to yourself. And it had everything, and I had like all those psychosomatic things you could have. So tons of allergies, couldn't poop, pooping was a big thing. We got prune juice, we had all this stuff, all this stuff. So this self-induction had all kinds of things about what to do for constipation, what to do for weight loss, what to do for this, what to do for that. So I learned at like 11 or 12 how to hypnotize myself and how to do what we would now call treatments and affirmations. So, which was just so fucking bizarre at that point. But that anxiety is what got me on this path, was dealing with the anxiety that was giving me physical symptoms, which is how New Thought started. That's how it started with Quimby and Mary Baker Eddy and all of that, right? So we go through, you must have noticed that in the history of mankind, we go through diseases that come out of nowhere and they stay for a while and then they find a cure for them or they just disappear. But they rise and fall. Why? Because you catch the consciousness. It's part of the race, what Ernest Holmes called race consciousness. So it's just there in the collective unconscious, whatever these diseases are. So it doesn't mean that they don't have real effects and that there's not stuff going on. It doesn't mean that at all. But you notice, like, oh, whatever happened to that disease? Like, people used to get that. Now that you don't hear about that anymore. Even though they didn't cure it or anything, it just went away because this other thing came in. So all of these now mental illnesses, and there's so many of them. And so for however X number of years, it was anxiety and dealing with anxiety. And now the new one is trauma. Everyone has fucking trauma. Everyone is traumatized. Well, of course. Life's fucking traumatic, okay? It's no big surprise that there is trauma. But people are now more traumatized than people were in World War II and World War I and because of the belief system, right? Because of what we give our power too. And what we talk about and what we amplify and what we activate and what we then put money behind and studies behind and all of this stuff, because we're always studying the wrong fucking thing. We're always studying illness instead of health, right? We're always studying problems instead of solutions, right? So what the Course in Miracles says is that the good news is there's only one problem. He says, it looks like you have many different problems, but you really only have one problem, and that is separation from God, which is only a thought, because you can't be separate from God. So the only problem you ever have is somewhere you're thinking about something other than your oneness. You're caught up in the bank account, right? The diagnoses, the war that's going on over there, the economy that's here, the problem with that friend over there, that you're always thinking about that. So this is why when Ernest Holmes began the treatment process, you go straight to, there's only one power and one presence, not two. Not two. So there's not good and evil. There's not dark and light. Right? There's only one power and one presence. There's only a stream of well-being. There's not also a stream of sickness and a stream of poverty and a stream of despair. Right? There's just a stream of well-being. And you're either going with the stream or you're resisting it. That's all. You're just going with it or you're resisting it. Right? Fear, anger, upset is resisting. Right? Saying, this shouldn't be happening. I don't want this. You know, I don't want to learn this, I don't want to see this, I don't want to go through this, I don't want to admit this, I don't want to make a decision, whatever it is the resistance to, I've decided, I don't know how. See, you know, this is the great thing, is you don't have to know how. I think that's also what stops people from making a decision is, but I don't know how. You can say, I've decided to go to Europe, I don't know how. I don't have the money, I don't know anyone there, I don't speak the language, I don't have a passport, I've decided to go to Europe. I don't know when, maybe you do know when. And the next year, I'm going to Europe, I don't know how, I don't know when. You've set things into motion. The decision sets things into motion. I've decided to come from a loving place. I've decided that my life is about that. I've decided that my life is about that experience of love, which is not affection. Affection is included in it, but it's love as a force, right? It's not like, I just love everybody, right? Well, if you do, good for fucking you. That's amazing. I am not there. I am not there. But I understand that there's a kind of spiritual love, right? Which is really about non-condemnation. Non-condemnation is an interesting thing because a lot of times what we're trying to do is not judge, and I don't have any problem with judgment. Judgment is a rational thought process. The problem is not that we judge certain things, it's that we condemn them. The judgment is something like, well, that doesn't fucking work. That's a judgment, right? It's like, well, stealing, that doesn't fucking work because eventually blah, 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 blah. Or being this way or that way doesn't fucking work. That's a judgment. It's an evaluation of a situation that was a shitty thing that person did is a judgment that is an evaluation that's absolutely fine to make. The problem is when we say, and therefore they should die, right? Or they should be ostracized, or they should this, or they should that. The story where where Jesus says, whoever is without sin, cast the first stone. So we all know that that's where they all go, oh, fuck, okay. Then they leave. That's where they know, right? So he says, whoever and then he goes, and then the Bible says he's like there doodling in the dirt. No, like someone who's not in their right mind. Like he's just, and they all go away. And then the woman who they were going to stone comes, and he says to her, I don't know what she says to him, but he says to her, go and sin no more, lest a worse thing fall upon you. So he wasn't saying, because she was like carrying around with several different men at the time, and it was adultery and all this stuff. And he was saying, like, that shit doesn't work. They'll stone you to death for that shit, okay? Like, they just were about to. So that shit doesn't work. So he wasn't saying, just go on with what you were doing. He's like, you don't do that shit anymore because they're going to stone you to death if you do that shit. But he said, I condemn you not. Right? He says to her, where are your accusers? And she says, well, they left. And he said, well, I condemn you not. Go your way and sin no more, lest a worse thing fall upon you. So it's okay for us to look and say, that's an awful thing that's happening. That's horrible. Like, one of the issues that I think people have is, and let me just give you this if you're one of these people, is that when people get into this stuff, then what they want is to just be around positive people. Why is everyone so negative? I just want to be around positive people all the time. Well, good fucking luck with that. Because if you're honest with yourself, that's not even you. But I just want all these negative people. I don't want to be around negative people, and they're such a drink. And then my sister-in-law, she's so fucking negative. And I'm always trying to help her, and I'm always trying to tell her, you should read this book, or you should blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, this is what I mean. When you get that that's not your job, even as a healer, that's not your job because you're not the healer. There's a psychotherapy booklet to A Course in Miracles that says psychotherapy, purpose, process, and practice. And this is what really I want this to all boil down to this morning, is that what that booklet says is that in the ego's paradigm of psychotherapy, there's the therapist who is the healer, and then the patient comes in order to be healed. And it says, first of all, the patient has an intention that is completely fucked up and unworkable. Because what the patient wants is this. It doesn't say it exactly this way, but so fucking close to this. That basically what the patient is saying is, I would like to retain my worldview, the way I see things, all the things that I am right about, but without any of the pain it's been causing me. Right? Well, that's impossible, okay? The patient doesn't go into therapy to be changed. Patients go into therapy in order to, I want to be exactly the way I am, except happy. I want to still hate all the same people I hate. I want to still, I want to still not forgive all the people I don't forgive. I still want to see everything the way I see it exactly, but with a few tools so that I can be happy about it. And so that's completely unworkable. The therapist's idea is, I'm going to help this patient change. They see things wrongly. I'm going to give them the tools. I'm going to teach them this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to relate to them. I'm going to be this amazing, wonderful person who's going to help them to come into peace and joy and a workable life. And the booklet says, that's fucked up. That's impossible. The real paradigm is that the Holy Spirit is the therapist, and both people come together to be healed. And you are healed by completely releasing the other person. So that means the psychotherapist can have no desire for the patient to change at all. That's why therapists burn out, trying to get people to change. There's a show that just came on that I think it's on Apple TV called Shrinking. Has anyone seen Shrinking? So Shrinking it's pretty fucking wild. And in fact, I wanted to tell you about this anyhow. I watch TV so you don't have to. But, so the guy who's playing the therapist is basically in the middle of complete and total, his wife has died a year earlier, and he's just in a deep, horrible, dark depression. And Harrison Ford is the head of this therapy group. So there's just 3 therapists. There's Harrison Ford, and then there's this black woman therapist, and then I can't remember the guy who's the therapist. I can't remember his name now. But his wife has died, and he's majorly depressed while he's seeing all these clients. And so his relationships are all just completely fucked up. But one of the things that is so and there's only been one episode on, but the thing that he says that I've heard therapists and people like this say all the time is, they keep coming in and they won't change. She's been coming to see me for a fucking year. She knows what to do and she won't change. And so his solution in his crazy, insane state of mind is he just starts telling them what to do. Because therapists don't tell you what to do. They just say, how did that make you feel? And how did that make you feel? And what do you think about that? And so he says, because you're probably not going to watch this. He says to this woman in the first episode, because she's been coming in for a year, and she's talking about her husband. And finally he says, he is a horrible, abusive person. Just leave him. Just leave. In fact, if you don't leave him, I'm firing you as a patient. Because she's like, people don't change. They've been here every year. They never change. They just keep coming back. They just keep saying the same thing. So this whole thing is about just sort of the help and the nightmare of him actually just deciding, I'm just going to tell them what to do. And I'm going to make them do it. I mean, if they want to stay, I'm going to make them do it. And so... And so I remember talking to a therapist about this years ago, a friend who was a therapist who was like, and he was saying, people don't change, and he didn't want to be a therapist anymore. I said, that's your mistake, is you think they're supposed to change. That's not what therapy is in this paradigm of we're all here in this secret society, we work for God. It's not about the people changing. It's about what happened. In fact, A Course in Miracles says that the real purpose of therapy is so that the sons of God can meet and see each other's innocence. So that the sons of God can meet to see each other's innocence, which is not about diagnosing where you fucked up, where you're wrong, what you doing. So one of the things that, so there's a, I can't remember this guy's name either, but this therapist's best friend in the show is a gay lawyer. And his motto is, everything always goes my way. Everything always goes my way. He says it all the time, everything goes my way, everything. The therapist and he haven't talked for a year. The therapist just dumped this guy as his best friend, and then they do reconcile at the end of the first episode, and he says, well, why did you just ghost me? Why did you just, abandon me like that? And he said, because my wife died. When my wife dies, when your wife dies, you don't want to hear someone say all the time, everything goes my way. Okay? I want to see you. So they work through that. But that's the thing, is a lot of times when we get into this thing of, I'm trying to be more positive, I'm doing positive aspects, I'm changing my vibration, I'm looking at things in a different way, is then you think that helping other people is pointing out their negativity and trying to get them to be more positive, which is just a judging and attacking them, basically. And what happens immediately, we all know this, as soon as you say that, they are going to defend their limitations. You just don't understand, you don't get it, you're not having this experience with. So why would you? No. You don't have to do anything but say, and this is what I'm teaching you today, it won't sound very spiritual, is when somebody is being very negative about their da-da-da-da-da, all you really have to do is say, oh my God, that sucks. Tell her. That's all you have to say. You just say that, and then they go, oh, I've been heard. I'm understood. You don't agree with them of their perception of it, that oh, you are totally fucked, it's never going to work out, it's all dire, and you might as well just kill yourself right now. But you don't try to talk them out of how they feel about it. This is the what I call hashtag opposite world, is the harder you work at something, the worse it gets. The harder you work at something, the worse it gets. And the harder you work to get something, the harder you will have to work to keep it once you have it. I know this sounds un-American. America's all about hard fucking work. Even people who don't work at all talk about how hard they fucking work. The Kardashians will talk about how fucking hard they work. Because it is, after all, a blow job. And it's not easy, right? Everybody talks about how hard, because it's like if you say things are easy, people hate you. right? It's just that I don't care about being hated. So I took this guy's motto. I was like, everything always works out for me. Everything always works out for me. Everything always works out for me. But if you say to somebody there in their story and you say, oh, that sucks, I'm sorry that's happening to you, is there anything I can do? You just keep that in your fucking pocket. Just as a blanket statement to make to people. That sucks, I'm sorry that's happening, is there anything I can do? And 9 times out of 10, what that person will do is start to counsel themselves. They'll then go, it is really hard, and it's not fair, it does suck. But you know, I think that, and then you can move on to the next thing after that. But otherwise, you're just going to get into an argument with them about how they need to look at it differently, and they need to see the glass half full, and they need to be more positive, and they need to read this book, and they need to come to this class, and they need to listen to this tape. Right? Which is not, you know, usually the most loving thing to do when somebody's really in it. Now, when they've lifted out a little bit, then you can present, you know, maybe you want, or if they're interested, you know. I realized at a certain point, to take away someone's misery is sometimes the worst possible thing you could do for them. Because for some people, that's all they have. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, for some people, that's their self-identification, is I'm somebody who is blah, 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 blah. And if you took that from them, they just would be lost. I told this story the other day, I'm going to tell it again. And I heard this on an Abraham tape like 20 years ago or something, where this guy was in the hot seat. He was so fucking negative. He was so angry and pissed, which usually doesn't happen at these seminars because you pay like enough money. You don't want to go and argue. You usually are there because you want to hear what they have to say. But he was there and he was an older man, and he was just like, people suck and people don't do this anymore and they don't get that. And it was mostly about people. It wasn't even about the world or politics or it was all about people are so awful and people are It went on such a long time. And I thought, what the fuck is Abraham going to say to that? Like, this is going to be a long, hard pull out of, you know, some... I was listening to it in the car, and I was like, I practically had to pull off the side of the road, because I was like, I want to fucking hear what they say to this, because this is a nightmare. Because if anyone said this to me, I don't know what I would say. So he went on and on, wound down, and Abraham said, we see you as an uplifter and a teacher to the very core of your being. And he went, I am. Like, just like that, he just softened. He just went from hard as a fucking rock to like a just mushy, I do care about everyone. That's all I ever want to do is help people. I was like, that is the most fucking genius thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, they didn't try to fix him, they didn't correct him, they didn't give him a lot of metaphysical information, they didn't talk about cleaning up his vibration. They just said, we see you as an uplifter and a teacher to the very core of your being. And he was like, yes. Because everybody thinks they're everyone thinks they're the hero of the movie. No one thinks I'm the villain. I have had that thought from time to time. I've thought, what if I'm the villain? I have. I don't know if anyone's ever thought that before. But once in a while I will think, what if I'm the villain? That'd be a shocker. I'm not saying that it's not possible or that I'd even be upset. But I'm just saying, I would hate to be misguided and find out at the end of the movie, you were the villain. So what they did was absolute non-resistance. They didn't resist him. They just said, we see you as a teacher and uplifter to the very core of your being, because he thought that's what helping was. Helping is pointing out how fucked up people are, right? Taking an inventory of what's wrong with people today. There are lots of people who think that my job is to see this shit and tell people about it. That's my role, right? Is I see how awful things are and I tell people how awful things are so that they will know. And they think that's a service. So Abraham didn't try to take that away from him in any way. They just said, oh, that's great. You're a teacher and an uplifter to the very core of your being. And he was like, thank you. And he got up and left the chair. Now, if they would have said to him, well, you know, that doesn't serve you very well, you should really turn that around, then that could have been a dialogue that went on for another hour. of trying to convince him. But again, it was that recognition of, I'm not here to change this person, to make them see the light, to get them to turn around, right? What if you didn't know why you were anywhere? Life would be very exciting. Life is boring because we think we know. I know why I'm here. I have to be here from 9 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon. I have to make these many calls, and this is what I'm expected to do, and this is what's going to happen when I come home. My spouse is going to say this and do this and be wearing this and look like this, and this is what's going to happen. We're going to go to bed at this time. I went to visit these old friends of mine in Santa Barbara over Thanksgiving, and I was staying in their guest house, which is actually an Airbnb, and it wasn't being used, so they said, we're going to block it out for a couple of days for you to stay. And so I knew they weren't making money, and so when I was like trying to take them out to dinner, and so it was like, it was so weird, because they basically would not allow me to take them out to dinner. What I realized was, at some level, they're afraid to go out at night. In Santa Barbara, they're afraid to go out like it's, I don't know what, downtown Detroit or something. They're like, I just got that, like, we don't go out at night. We don't leave the plantation or whatever. Like, we just stay in this place. And so, at one time in my life, I would have gone into that. Like, I would have been like, what the fuck is this about? And what do you do? And I was just like, just back away. Like, it's okay. They don't have to go out at night. You don't have to heal them and get them over this and make them happy. Just go, good for fucking you. You don't have to go out at night, and I don't have to pay for your dinner. It's a win-win, right? But the exhaustion that is saved when you stop trying to save the world, to save everybody else, to fix everybody else, and you just focus on me. Just my own healing for today, my own happiness, and then whoever shows up, I know that's a holy encounter at some level. At some level, it's just about the healing of whatever little bit of resistance or judgment or upset might be there. And maybe there's not much at all. Maybe you're just fine in the moment and you're just coming together just for the fun and the play and the whatever. There's nothing serious going on. Because guess what? Even when you die, you'll survive it. The worst possible thing when it happens will be okay. You'll just be on the other side. So we're always making everything so fucking serious. This is so significant and so serious and such a big deal, and that's why we're stressed out. What if nothing is really a big deal in terms of the externals of things? What if really the only big deal is, am I coming from a loving place, or am I coming from a place of fear and defensiveness and anger and upset? Right? Am I making decisions, or am I just floating along and hoping and wishing, instead of saying, no, I've decided to be happy today, I've decided to be loving today, I've decided to whatever the fuck you decide for today. Get used to saying that out loud. I've decided. I've decided. Have you ever been with people who won't make a fucking decision? Where do you want to go to dinner? I don't care. Well, let's go to Italian. Not Italian. Well, how about Mexican? I'm not in the mood for Mexican. What if we go, make a fucking decision? No, I don't want to decide. You decide. How about, right? But if you just learn to, it's okay. Like, making a decision is a wonderful thing, and a lot of times you can also change your mind. There's no embarrassment in saying, I changed my mind. Sometimes you actually have to commit to something before you can say no. Have you ever known couples who, they were together for 20 years, just living together for 20 years, and then they got married and divorced a week later? Because until they really committed, they didn't know, this is not it. Right? We hadn't really decided. Once we decided, we were like, oh, that was not right. Right? I remember, I so wanted this job when I was living in Pennsylvania, and I just did everything to get that job. I manipulated and controlled to get this job that was just going to be it. And I was there one fucking day and I was like, I am out of here. Quit after one fucking day. I am a big advocate for quitting. I have quit my way right to the middle. I dropped out after one day of kindergarten. I was like, no, not for me. That lady's crazy. She was crazy too. So I was like, nope, not going there. I quit band. I quit karate. I quit almost every fucking thing except, I would say except this job, but I've quit this job thousands of times. Thousands and thousands and thousands of times I have quit this job. I don't know who you have to fuck to get out of this job. I don't know. But I have quit this job so many fucking times. And now the peace that I have is now it's not a job anymore because I completely let go of the whole seeing it as a business. I don't see it as a business anymore. I don't see any of this as like it's a career, it's a business, it's what I'm doing. Again, I just see it as like we all work for God and Jesus sent me here to talk to you. I don't know if I can know why. I just go, Jesus said, and then you don't have to be upset about Jesus because I don't even know if Jesus ever existed, but he was drilled into my head as a child and I can't get him out. He's like, I always said, Jesus is like, if you ever had those Tupperware containers and you put like spaghetti with marinara sauce in it, and it's like kind of old, so then when you take it out, you'll never get that marinara out of there. That's Jesus. I've just scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed, and he just was like, it's like a marinara stain on the Tupperware of my heart that just is Jesus. And I don't even know if Jesus ever existed. I don't have any fucking idea, but he's not coming out. So he's my spirit guide. I've at least upgraded him. Now I see him as hot gay Jesus. But I always just go like, Jesus sends me here and Jesus sends me there, and then I'm on a salary, and then the business is none of my business. Do you know, like the business is none of my business. Like the money goes up and down, people go up and down, all this stuff, and I go like, Jesus, rent's due. Jesus, you need new tires. Jesus, and it all happens. It just all happens because I'm like, I see myself as the semi-retired executive secretary to Jesus. Like Lonnie Anderson on WKRP. Like I have a killer rack and I just go and show up. I just show up and I look pretty and wherever I'm sent. But all the business is taken care of. Like all that stuff, happens because I'm doing my job was just to show up and know what it's about. That we come together in order that our minds be healed. So that you leave here not with more than you came in with, but less than you came in with. Right? We're trying to, what are you going to get out of today? Nothing, I hope. I hope you don't get anything out of today. You came in with way too fucking much to begin with. What we're just trying to do is get rid of. That's why we're bailing out this boat. We're just throwing out, we got the buckets going. Too much, too much, too much. So A Course in Miracles says miracles don't do anything. Miracles undo. So it undoes the knots in our thinking, which says, the problem is really complicated, it's dependent on this, and first, I need the government to change first, and I need my family to change first, and I need the economy to change first, and I need this to change first, and then da-da-da-da-da-da. Right? No, you just need to get real fucking simple. Just simplicity, simplicity, simplicity. Stop making it complicated. But A Course in Miracles says, simplicity is very difficult for twisted minds. So, the handbook to living, for me, is living by grace. You like that, right? It's true. Simplicity is very difficult for twisted minds. Right? So, living by grace, to me, is my handbook to living. This is written by Joel Goldsmith. I have like 3 copies of this in hardback. It's out of print. This is the bane of Patty's existence. When Patty had the bookstore at Pacific Church, all the books I would have would be out of print. But the great thing is you can get them on Amazon. It's out of print, so you can't get it in a bookstore, but you can get it on Amazon. But I have like 3 or 4 copies of them in different backpacks and cars and everywhere because I always want to have it, because to me, it is the key to sanity. Now, what he really talks about a lot in here is if you are like a minister, a practitioner, a life coach, a therapist, a blah, 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 but it applies to every fucking thing. That we all have the same job that just takes a different form. So, when I stick to this, I'm sane and happy and good and all is fucking well. But it makes absolutely no sense in terms of the way we've been taught to live our lives and run the show and think of things. Now his particular organization he called The Infinite Way. So that was his whole philosophy. It was the first book he wrote, and then his whole organization and philosophy, he just called it The Infinite Way. I am not trying to save the world. I'm not carrying the gospel anywhere. Since my work began, I have never gone any place until I was invited. In some cases, I've not gone until I received repeated invitations. I'm not advertising in newspapers or magazines. When I receive an invitation, if my inner guidance says, yes, go, I go. Otherwise, I stay at home and live by my own conscious realization of God. Then, when an individual or a group comes to me, I share it with them. But I never go anywhere with the intention of saving anyone or carrying anyone to heaven with me or healing anyone. When I'm invited, it's my joy to go and share, but never with the intention of selling or giving the light. You came here to receive it. That's the difference. I didn't come here to sell it. I never offer it to my sister or brother because they've not reached out for it or asked for it or desired it. Occasionally they ask for a healing and they get it, and as far as I'm concerned, that's as much as they want, and so that's as much as they get. Right? You stop trying to fix your family and your people and the blah, 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 blah. When the message of the infinite way was given to me, I was also given instructions for carrying it to the world. The first instruction was, never seek a student. Are you jotting this down? Because that would also mean never seek a client, never seek a customer. Stop seeking. Never seek a student. Share with the students who come to you, but never seek a student. Not only do I never attempt to seek a student, but also in all of the years, I've never gone any place to lecture or teach except when I was sent for and when the invitation indicated seriousness of purpose. There's a story he tells in one of his other books where he says he's in a hotel lobby meeting this guy over something that has nothing to do with Joel's business. And Joel traveled all over and taught seminars all over. So he was at some hotel where he was going to teach a seminar, and he was having a business meeting in the lobby with some guy who had no idea what Joel did for a living, so it was some other thing. And so finally, when they're winding up their business, the guy says to Joel, "What is it that you do?" And he said, "Well, it's kind of hard to explain. I basically teach a way of life." And the man goes, "Oh, well, I have been looking for something just like that, like some kind of philosophy of life, of living." He said, "But how do people find out about you?" And he said, and Joel said, "Well, we don't advertise." He said, "You know, if people need to know about me, then they just are able to find me. That's just how it works. We don't advertise. We have a tiny little announcement in the paper that I'm going to be there for Infinite Way people who already know who I am, but we don't do mailings. We don't do anything like that." And so the man says, "Well, then I don't understand how people find you when they need you." And Joel goes, "You did." That's the attitude. Do you understand? That's the attitude is, if I maintain this understanding of what it's all really about, that it's not about, see, what I'm taught, you see, if you go to my website or these various places, you'll see where it says Brother Jacob. Now, first of all, I would say I was drafted by God at an early age, because I was always being pulled in. Even if I wasn't that particular religion, I'd be pulled in to do something. Like, "Oh, we've made you, you know, the chaplain of the Future Business Leaders of America." What the fuck is that? Was a high school it was not a Catholic high school, it was like a regular high school. So I was always being called to read from the Bible, to do spiritual stuff in places. Why was I telling you that? Joel Goldsmith. Oh, Brother Jacob. So one of the first jobs I had out of high school, so it would always just be random, like I would not know where these things came from. So one of my first jobs out of high school was I worked in a Franciscan monastery, because I just got a call one day from a priest who I'd never heard of before, who'd never heard of me, who just said, someone said that you can type and we need someone to type in this. He was a priest in this Franciscan monastery, and which I didn't even know existed in like a town 30 minutes away. I ended up working in, it was like a prayer ministry, so they would do novenas for the dead twice a year. So people would mail in the names of their deceased and with a donation, and the monks and priests would do a prayer. But it was like a training place for these Franciscans, and they were all brother this or that. So it was Brother Lewis doing this, and Brother so-and-so is doing such and such, and Brother this is doing that. Well, then when I came to A Course in Miracles, the Course in Miracles said everybody is your brother. So it's not about genitalia, so it's not, and sister. It's like everybody, you see everyone as a brother. And I don't know any of you old timers remember Bartholomew, the channeled entity Bartholomew wrote the book, I Come as a Brother. Because when I first started doing ministerial things, and I would go do weddings for people, and a lot of the people at the wedding didn't know me. Like the couple knew me, but so then all these people call me pastor, and I always felt so fucking weird, Pastor Glass. And I'd be like, I feel like I should be wearing old granny glasses and, just come off the farm or something in the wee Kirk of the Heather. So there's just something about pastor just seemed so old-timey weird to me. And so when A Course in Miracles talked about you come as a brother, that because brothers are equals. So you don't see someone as teacher and student and this and that there's no hierarchy, that everyone is the same. So what I'm talking about today is this philosophy where you see everybody as a brother. Because one of the things that we're taught in the worldly sense is it's like we're salesmen and merchants all the time. And one of the things, like I kept quitting this job, was I was like, I'm absolutely not gonna fucking sell God. There's no fucking way I am selling God. I don't want any fucking thing to do with it. I was horrified. This was in the first couple of years of lecturing in Santa Barbara, and I had this realization, you know how reality hits you all at once, and I went, holy fuck, I'm one of those guys who sells their tapes in the lobby. That was the worst fucking thing to be. I did not want to be, and there I was one of those people who sold their fucking tapes in the lobby selling God. I just was like, I can't do this anymore. But what we're taught is to not have a salesmanship mentality with people, but to see everyone as a brother. That you don't see, that's a potential customer, that's a potential sale, that's a potential husband, that's a potential wife, that's a potential, you see everyone as a brother, and then you're not trying to get anything from them. Because a get mentality is not a receptive mentality. If you are trying to get from the universe will get from you. It just mirrors back to you. But if what you're saying is this is just a circulation of energy, then it just keeps flowing. So you don't know if the reason someone came to you is because it's about what it looks like it's about. That it looks like it's about a sale, or it's about us going on a romantic date, or it's about us becoming... You go, I don't know what this is about. Let's see what this is about. That's what makes life exciting, is when you go, I don't know. That's why you can always get laid on vacation. You can always get laid on vacation because you don't have a story about where's this going? Are you going to meet my family? What are you going to do? Right? Where all the story that you have in your normal town when you're thinking, am I going to get this out of you? This is why children are happy. Is because, you meet a new kid in the playground, you play for a day, you go, you play the next day. You don't then stop and say, oh, I kind of want to know where this is going. First of all, I'd like to know if you're seeing other children. I mean, And are we going to play every day? Or is this going to be just a sometime thing when you're in the mood? Like, I want to know, I don't want to invest a lot of time and energy in this whole thing and then find out later you're seeing other kids. You don't think all the time like, I have to be knowing where everything's going. You know, it's interesting in times like this, in times when you look at the world and it's a shit show, instead of people doing what would help, which is returning to principle, like the New Thought churches should have people standing in the aisles trying to get in. But instead, people leave principle in droves and get super fucking interested in psychics, tarot cards, astrology, crystal, soothsaying. What's gonna fucking happen? Because that's, for the most part, victim consciousness. I'm not responsible. I'm not the decider. Tell me what the cards say. Tell me what's my karma. Tell me what the stars are saying about that person. Tell me whether this is blah, blah, blah. Instead of saying, this is the time to buckle down and do what I know. This is the time to really return to principle, to things that don't change. Cards change all the time. The psychic reading changes all the time. There's nothing wrong with those things. They can be fun. They're nice parlor games. But they're not based on principle, which doesn't change. And in times of great change, fix your eyes on things that don't change. That's why maps aren't that helpful, because maps change, right? Where there used to be a town, there isn't a town anymore. Where there was just wilderness, now there's a town and there's 20 roads there, right? But the stars don't change. So you can be guided by the North Star now, 100 years ago, 100 years from now, right? Because those things don't change. So it doesn't matter how much things are changing here. I gotta let you guys go, I know. Is the difference between even like the GPS that's in my car is not anywhere near as helpful as the Waze on my phone. Because my car is 2010. So it just has the GPS, which every year you have to get a new CD that you put in and it updates the blah, 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 blah. But it still only knows the road. It doesn't know the conditions. So that's like our human mind, which knows, oh, I think that the best, so I would be like my GPS would say the best route is to get on this freeway and go this way and do this. So my little human mind would say, the best thing for me to do is I should probably hire this person to get me on social media, and then I should probably do this and put an ad in this, and I should do this because I want this many people and I'm projected to this by next year and blah, 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 blah. Well, that might be the worst possible thing I could do because I don't know what's up there. But the Waze knows what's up there. So, and I don't know how the fuck she knows. What is that? It's like a witch in there. Because she's like, you know, she'll go like, there's a car off to the side of the road a little ways ahead. I'm like, how the fuck does she know that? Like, my GPS doesn't know that. She's going like, slow down, there are police over in the thing, and there's a thing over here, and that road is closed. Like the GPS, my GPS doesn't know that road is closed because it was just closed yesterday, but GPS knows what happened 2 seconds ago. That's God. That's when we tune into God and say, this or something better for the highest good. We're saying, you direct me. I don't know. Maybe the best thing is only to have 2 clients instead of 40 clients, but I have 2 clients who are billionaires. Maybe, like, I don't know. I don't know the outline of what it should look like. What I know is how it should feel and how I want to live. I've decided I want to live financially free. I want to live in a place where I feel supported and loved. I want to feel in a place that, you know, has all the amenities that I like. I want to have, you know, people in my life who are such and such and so, but I don't have to get down into the minutia of all of it because I don't know what's on the road ahead. Like, Waze will go like, that guy that you're so interested in is a serial killer. Like, I didn't know that. How'd they know that? They know he's a serial killer. Right? You know, you don't know, because everybody, you know, always on the news, it's like, he was so nice. He was the sweetest guy. We had no idea he had 50 heads in the basement. So, you know, I do not perceive my own best interests, the Course says. But that doesn't stop us from making choices about things, right? I want to feel this way. I want to have this kind of life. I want this kind of help. I want this kind of ease. I want this kind of friendships. I want this kind of day. all of those choices, that we're just not attached to the picture of how it turns out, and we're not resistant. We're just, I'm always making the best of things, because things always go my way. Things always go my way. I want you to say that. Things always go my way. Get used to saying that. Just say that to each other all day long today. In the car, and everything, just whatever, just go, things always go my way. Everything always goes my way. Just make that your motto for a week, and just watch what happens. It will shift your consciousness and your vibration. Don't try to get other people to do it. Don't try to reform your negative sister-in-law. Just hush, mom's word, just like, things always go my way. And don't tell someone whose wife just died that things always go your way, okay? It's okay to say, that sucks. I'm sorry that's happening to you. Is there anything I can do? That sucks. I'm sorry you're going through that. Is there anything I can do? That sucks. I'm sorry you're going through that. Is there anything I can do? You just keep that right there. You don't even have to mean it. It's just a nice thing for someone to feel, someone heard me, someone knows, and someone's there, right? Instead of always being in opposition of, I'm here to fix people, fix the world, fix my body. Let me just say one more thing. We're just working on our self-concept. That the idea of self-empowerment is not about improving yourself. It's about your concept of yourself. How you see yourself. The story you tell about you. So, for instance, I was telling this story about when I first started out, it was cassette tapes. So I was lecturing, we were doing cassette tapes. And then we went to CDs, and people fucking lost it. Oh, CDs, how am I going to... So then eventually enough people had CDs in their car, and people could get CDs, and they were like, oh, okay, because everybody didn't want to adapt to CDs. Then everybody adapted to CDs, and blah, blah. Then, oh my God, we went from CDs to MP3s. And then that was like the end of the fucking human civilization for people. They were like, we don't know what to do. And the thing that, because a lot of times I have older people, is I don't understand technology. I don't get technology. I'm not a technological person. I don't understand technology. I don't get technology. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing in New Thought? What are you doing in a New Thought church with that fucking limited affirmation that I just can't do this, and I don't do this, and I can't do this, and I won't do that? I'm like, do you know where you are? Look around. Pick up a book. If you were just out on the street and we met, I'd be fine with that. But like, what the fuck have you been listening to while you've been sitting here all this time, that the first time something comes up that's not right in your wheelhouse, you just go, no! I am too old, I'm too stuck, I'm too this, I'm too that, I can't do it, and just stop talking to me. Right? Have you fucking tried? Oh, no, I haven't tried. Well, this is what I started telling people about the MP3s, is they would get them and then they go, I don't know what to do with this, I don't understand. I said, do you have an 8-year-old granddaughter? Hand her the phone. She'll download it in 2 seconds, put it in a file, label it, put it in a playlist, and there it'll be forever. Like, this is the thing, is people talk in New Thought about manifesting all the time, and then they never manifest fucking shit. It's like, oh, I don't have a way to get to your class. Fucking manifest it! Duh! It's like, oh, I'm this, I'm on a fixed income. Pfft, who fixed it? You did. like you just realize all the time that you've decided to disempower yourself. I've decided to not learn this. I've decided to I'm not going to go to an ATM. I'm not going to have a cell. I'm not going to this. I'm going to limit, smaller, tinier, while I'm studying this philosophy I do not believe in. Spending 30 years in a philosophy I do not believe in. Right? Instead of saying, well, I don't know how, but I've decided that it can happen. I don't have to, it's in so many ways, it was just like that. It's like, well, even if you don't understand the technology, give it to your granddaughter. She'll do it for you. She'll just show and you'll be able to click it in 2 seconds, it'll be there and that'll be that. It doesn't always have to be you, but if you know you're unlimited and you really believe this stuff, then when something new comes up, you go, well, I don't know how, but I've decided it can work for me. I don't have to know how I'm going to get to Europe. I've decided to go to Europe. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I've decided that I'm going to do it. I've decided that I'm going to have this, even though they say people like me can't have that. Do you know, every day, all the amazing marvels that are happening? You must have seen some of those videos and things where like people now have like those cochlear implants where they're hearing for the first time in their life and all these marvelous things that all of a sudden, things that were impossible are now possible. So the thing that you think, it's too late, I'm too old, I'm too stuck, I'm too ignorant, I'm too this, I'm too that. This is what I loved about Louise Hay, is that even in her 90s, she was constantly finding limiting thoughts and turning them around. She started ballroom dancing in her 80s, I think. Why did she not dance before that? Because a grade school teacher told her she had big, ugly feet, and that she was too clumsy to dance. So she never danced, and then somewhere in her 70s or 80s, she realized, oh, that's just a limiting belief. Like, I spent all this time not dancing because somebody said this to me, and I believed them, and so I didn't try. So she started ballroom dancing, and when she was in her 70s, she started painting, and she did, like, all these things that past the point when you're supposed to be doing stuff, she kept saying, okay, I didn't think I could do it. I mean, Hay House is probably the biggest metaphysical publisher in the world, but for years she thought she was stupid because she dropped out of school in 8th grade. So she thought, I'm stupid, I can't learn, I'm uneducated. And then she became, I think You Can Heal Your Life sold like 50 million copies or something like that. So this uneducated, stupid woman who can't think wrote a book and sold 50 million copies of it. Because she just said, I don't know how, I'm just going to keep going in the direction of my dreams and my desires and what comes up for me without having any idea how to do it. And I swear, this is the last thing I'm going to say. This is how easy she made it, because people said, because it just is in alignment with what I talked about with Joel Goldsmith, which was there's a bigger purpose for us coming together than what it looks like. And her question that she was always asking what she called God, which was life, is how can I help? And things would just appear. And so people asked her, well, how did Hay House grow? First of all, you have to also know that she didn't start Hay House until she was like 60 years old. Okay? So she started Hay House, and she said, all I did was answer the phone and open the mail. That's it. She just had the intention of being helpful, and she said, all we did was answer the phone. We didn't have a 5-year business plan or a growth this or that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but she said we didn't do any of that. It just grew because of my intention and me just answering the phone and opening the mail. So it was just like I was saying earlier. I really want you to get this. If you stay in this state of mind, whatever you need appears in the moment that you need it. So her thing was, I would just answer the phone and open the mail. So like when our office got too crowded and we needed more space, that very week, the people in the office across the hall who'd been there 20 years closed their business and their place opened up. She said, when I found out that my mother, who was living, Louise was in California, her mother was like in Ohio, I found out that my mother had cataracts and was blind and she was this and she couldn't do that. And so I said to life/God, I said, well, I'll take her in and take care of her. I said, but you have to provide everything. She said, because I'm writing this book and I'm traveling all over the country with workshops and I can't be here with her and blah, 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 blah. So life just took care of her mother. So her mother came and they got her cataract surgery so then she could see. And she said, and I was going on all these workshops. She said, but I was doing the hair. She said, all these gay men came in and my mother was like the fucking queen mother. They did her hair, they took her shopping, they dressed her up, they took her to restaurants. She was like the happiest she'd ever been in her whole life. So that state of mind is if you're saying and really believing that things always work out for me, then always at the moment that it's needed, it's going to appear. But you don't necessarily know what it's going to look like. Like Louise didn't know who was going to take care of her mom. She just said, I'm going to do this and it's going to be taken care of. Life will take care of this. The right person will come at the right time because that's what I believe. All right, let's do a closing and we'll send you out into your fabulous life where everything is always going your way. Everything's always going your way, and also things are always going your way. Expect things to go your way all of 2023. All right. We close our eyes, take a deep breath. As we come together now in gratitude for this joining and this sharing, knowing that it is accomplished. Whatever was the divine purpose for this magical experience of joining consciousness, it has been accomplished, and it has also set into motion many wonderful new things, new beginnings, new vistas, new ideas, new energy, and new life. That this meeting is not over at the end. It continues on. We continue to meet each other in our various forms, knowing that the purpose is that we're healed together, and that to heal is to make happy. This is not some dour, serious religion. This is about joy and expansion and peace. And so we offer ourselves in this process, our hands and our feet and our voices, asking this divine presence within, this oneness. Where would you have us go? What would you have us do and say, and to whom? Remembering now, as always, the way that we will know love and the way that we will feel love is by this infinite love moving through us to the world around us. For this we are thankful. So be it. So it is. Amen. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your weekend.